Second.
Okay, we're going to call to order this regular board meeting of the Woodford County Board of Education via video teleconference. We have 3 members present, 1 member on teleconference, and 1 member absent. Please stand for the pledge. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Are there any proposed amendments to the agenda?
Yes, Vice Chair. Through some discussion, we have determined that the school's improvement plan was added under Article 13, Item D, and that would cause our principals to be here after a long day of work all night. So if we could move that to underneath Article 5, just after the School Board Recognition Month, James K. And his Judge Executive Proclamation, then that would be a big help to our staff.
Okay. Is there a motion to move Article 13, Information Item D, the school improvement plans, to Article 5, Item E?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. I have a motion by Ms. McHale and a second by Ms. Springate. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Allison, did you vote? Okay.
Aye.
Motion passes 4-0.
Aye.
Okay. Superintendent's report.
Yeah. Just a second, let me get to my notes. Got a lot of good things, great things going on. I actually wanted to touch initially on NTI and TRI days. Basically, as far as what the student does, it's pretty much the same. NTI days are what we use. We got 10 of those for weather and sickness. However, legislation has given us 10 more. The governor signed it, passed it into law, I think last Monday. That gives us 10 more. Basically, what that says is we can only call out. We can't do an entire district. We can do a class. We can do a grade level. We can do 6 of our 7 schools, but we can't call out the entire district with those. So we've kind of been trying to strategically use those. And you'll notice our high schools, right now, we're really being hit pretty hard here to high school with staffing. I think for tomorrow we were going to have 16 teachers out. 9 of those we couldn't find subs for. So that's why we are utilizing TRI days there. It allows us to continue educating and instructing our kids, although we're doing it virtually, but it gives us that opportunity to be able to do that from home where our staff are either quarantining or recovering from positive cases. CKEC grant, wellness grants. I know Safe Harbor got one, Simmons got one, Southside to be used for maybe even a little wellness activity possibly for the staff, or maybe healthy snacks, something along those lines, however they choose to use those. So we were fortunate enough to have 3 of those here in our district. Snow day, I know Miss Bailey had done a little request asking all of our students if they could possibly get some pictures of them enjoying the snow, and just had some great opportunities to see kids at home just enjoying what a real snow day is. COVID has given us, has almost taken those away from us actually. So to have an opportunity to give those kids a chance to play in the snow, it was a good, really good feeling, and good feeling to see them out enjoying themselves outside. We'll move to our middle school. Middle school volleyball is playing the semifinals of the district, I would imagine, tonight. They upset the number 1 team last week, so they're over in Franklin County right now and getting ready to play that. Middle school academic team excelled at the district Governor's Cup, sending several students to state competitions, so we're really excited about that. Great things going on over at our middle school. High school CERT scores and ACT scores, Ms. Best shared those with me. We're seeing considerable growth in those. I mean, I will say that we're still pushing the envelope to get to pre-COVID numbers, but we are showing growth, and growth means that we're educating kids. So that's the beauty of that. High school academic team, they won the district competition this weekend, so hats off to them. They're doing really well. Our Lady Jackets and Yellow Jackets are having a really good, just an awesome season, performing very well. I know that the boys team has, if I'm not mistaken, has only lost one game, and that was the #1 team in the state. So they're very competitive and just great things going on. I was able to attend the football banquet last night. Coach Johnson, his staff, his parents just did an excellent job recognizing those kids, and he really went above and beyond too to make those parents feel welcome as well. So it was a really, really good time here in the district the last month, even though we have had some bad weather. So yeah. I do have one more thing that I would like to touch on. Just in response to some concerns that have been raised about the spending of Esser funds, I want to take a moment to clarify a few things and highlight some of the ways that we have supported our students and staff with the Esser funds. First off, I would like to explain what Esser funds are and how they are to be used. Esser funds have been provided us through the federal government, and there will be links actually put up that will show you trainings from our KSBA trainings last month in December on how to maximize federal dollars. There were 3 rounds of monies released from this federal fund over the last 2 years for a total of $7,613,000. To date, we have spent $3,288,000 of those funds. These funds were designed to help offset the impact of COVID-19 on schools. Funds are available to use only through September 30th, 2022, that's Esser 1, September 30th, 2023, that's Esser 2, and then September 30th, 2024 for Esser 3. Expenses may include almost anything as long as you're using the funds to react to, prevent, limit the spread of COVID-19 or located on the spending matrix. This is important to understand as the uses can be broad and cover a range of issues, needs, and concerns. Now, on to some of the concerns. One of these concerns was that we paid for diesel fuel. The diesel fuel was used to transport students to and from summer school, where the focus was on remediation and recovery of learning loss. The summer school program was also paid for by Esser 2 funds. Another major expenditure of $700,000 was used in one-time supplements for our teachers and staff members to reward them for their hard work and dedication through the pandemic. We have paid for school nursing staff that have seen their daily work increase immeasurably during this time. We purchased furniture to allow social distancing, purchased PPE, including plexiglass dividers, and funded industrial cleaning services which provide daily sanitization of every school. We had an employee assistance program to allow employees and their families access to mental health services. This was applauded by the district employees when it was implemented. All of these decisions were made with the data available at the time about the best practices for COVID mediation, and all of these decisions were made with the best interest of Woodford County students and employees. Buses were purchased as a way of furthering social distancing on transportation routes. It's unfortunate that due to the labor markets, we could not hire enough bus drivers to cover these routes. This labor issue is a national issue that has affected every industry, and we have no way of knowing how long it may continue. But we are required to replace bus orders almost a year in place bus orders almost a year in advance of their delivery. Another concern raised was the notion of moving Esser funds into the general fund as a way of padding the budget. This is simply not true. As I explained above, these Esser funds have a real expiration date. If we are able to move these into our general fund, it removes the expiration date on them. This has been a common practice across the state and was highlighted as a smart way to make sure we can utilize these funds at our training in December. Additionally, concerns about recoding of expenses have arisen. This, for some reason, has been viewed as an underhanded or improper action. The funds were designed to be utilized on expenses dating back to March 13, 2020. This would actually require recoding on items. This is highlighted in the training slides from December 2021 as well. One of the expenses that was recoded was the industrial spray cleaning it had been allocated from the general fund when it is clearly a direct result of COVID-19 containment. Esser funds were reviewed and tested during the external audit, and no inconsistencies or improper entries were found. And finally, there has been much debate about an Esser budget being approved by the board and subsequent changes to spending being unauthorized. It is very important to first understand the difference between a spending plan and budget. There was never a budget for Esser, only spending plans. Spending plans do not need formal board approval, whereas budgets do. At the time of the May 2021 approval of the spending plan, it was clearly discussed and understood this was a framework. Guidance from KDE at the time made it unclear how much discretion district administrators could exercise and what aspects of Esser spending had to be specifically authorized by local boards of education. Out of an abundance of caution, Superintendent Hawkins presented the spending plan to the board for approval with a clarification provided during that meeting that the spending plan was a framework and was subject to change. More recent guidance from KDE has made it clear that this level of detailed board involvement was not required. There was never an approved budget for the Esser funds, so there was no deviation that needed to be approved by the board. Many sources were used in determining the spending plans. A COVID task force was created late spring of 2020. While it wasn't the main goal, they did make recommendations on ways to utilize Esser 1 and Esser 2. Big Rock action plans were incorporated into the spending plans as well. The district cabinet met and agreed upon the initial plan for Esser 2, and on May 20, 2021, a survey was emailed through Infinite Campus to all parents, all staff, and students in grades 8 through 11. The purpose of this survey was to identify the priority areas of need going into 2021-22 school year and collect input from stakeholders in regard to the use of ARP and Esser funds. This was a specific requirement of Esser 2 stakeholder input. The survey was conducted via Google Forms. 551 parents, 231 staff, 109 students responded to the survey. The results of that survey will be posted after this meeting in case they were missed when first reviewed. GMAT reports detailing actual spending and their justifications were submitted and reviewed by KDE. This would include the recoded expenses that have been under question. In closing, it is imperative to mention that all of the expenditures that have been yet made using Esser funds have been reviewed by the Kentucky Department of Education. They have also been reviewed through our annual audit and were deemed appropriate and compliant with all audit standards. Woodford County Schools have consistently been transparent with our citizens and will continue that way going forward. As always, you can contact me or your school board representative for clarification.
Mr. Atkins, if I could just respond. In my tenure as a board member, I have never had as many people reaching out to me as I have over the past few months. People are seeking answers to very real questions. We shouldn't be surprised that our community is confused and upset. The board's lack of communication has created conflict, mistrust, and missed opportunities. A person shouldn't have to contact the Kentucky Department of Education to find out how our district is spending Esser funds. At this point, there's a lot I don't know, but there are a few things that are abundantly clear to me. Number one, the board did approve an Esser 2 spending plan in May, and that plan was not followed. Number two, the stakeholder input gathered from the parent, student, and staff survey for use of ARP Esser funds was not followed. Number three, despite the Commissioner of Education telling us that the ARP Esser funds should be approved by local boards of education, there has been no board discussion or approval on how these millions of dollars should be spent. And finally, and most importantly, we know that the needs of our students and staff are great, but instead of providing supports, a vast majority of these valuable funds are being used to cover existing operating expenses. This is why our community and staff are so upset. Until this board commits to operating in an open and transparent manner, it will never gain the people's trust. I have repeatedly asked the following questions. Are Esser funds being used to balance this year's budget? Why are Esser funds being used to cover existing operating expenses? And will the use of Esser funds create another surplus this year? If so, how is that surplus going to be used? Sadly, I don't know the answers to these questions, and I'm a board member. Tonight, I'm calling on this board to pause the spending of the ARP Esser funds to involve our stakeholders in determining the best use of these funds. How we respond to this predicament speaks volumes to our priorities.
Okay, moving on to item B, the good news report. Lizzie, do you want to start us off?
Yes, I'd love to. Like Mr. Atkins touched on, the academic teams are doing very well on at both the middle school and the high school levels. Our basketball teams are doing really well as well, and we get a lot of great turnout at the games. And it's super fun that we're still able to do those. Winter Guard has a competition this weekend, so hopefully we're all cheering them on. The swim team is also doing great. Thanks, shout out to Miss Hicks for being such a great coach. The wrestling and cheerleaders are still, doing their thing. They're doing really great. I just want to thank you guys because I know that it's School Board Recognition Month, and all the students want to thank you for just doing such a great job and working hard over these past few months. And also, I want to take a moment to think about all the people that are having COVID because the spikes, it's kind of spiking up, and we know that the numbers are up. So let's just be thinking about them. And I'd like to thank all the teachers and staff that work at Woodford County Public Schools because I know that it's been a hard time, and especially with so many people being out at the high school, I know that it's really hard to do these online days, and I just want to thank you guys for always being there for your students. And Dr. Bella's back at the high school, and we love him, so that's my good news report.
Ms. McGill?
I already spoke to Ms. Kaiser before the meeting, but I did want to say thank you once again. I was able to attend the SBDM meeting at Huntertown last month and got to interact a little more with some of the teachers there and a couple of parents who serve on the committee. Always impressed and grateful for all the good work that they're doing over at Huntertown, and just a real pleasure to be a part of that. So thank you again.
Ms. Bringate?
I would just say, thank you to really all of our teachers and staff, as well as our parents and students. I know it's just been yet another hard year. And thank Angel for putting together the Recognition Month and Elaine for doing our wonderful posts. Thank you.
Ms. Richardson?
I'd just like to say that I think it's great that we can now do the TRI days like we've done the last 2 days in a row. I think that really helps, especially in this case, the parents with younger kids who are trying to keep their kids in school and, trying to avoid taking sick days or unpaid days that they can't take. I think that it's really important, to be able to kind of hone this into a specific group where we need to focus. Kids been out and the other kids attend school. I talked feedback about we're thankful, and I hope our school teachers and staff, heal up quick and are able to return, and they're excited to do that. So I think that that's been positive. Also, thank you to Mr. Atkins for being so proactive and on top of this, and our parents and everyone know in a timely manner that they can make arrangements they need to have. When our kids aren't going to be in school. So that's a welcome change. I'll take.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to share some exciting things that are going to going on over at Northside. And on May 15th, the PTO is going to be hosting a 5K. They're going to have a 5K, a fun run for kids, fastest kid in Midway, a couple other fun, exciting things. They have some great community sponsorship already. Just trying to build back up their PTO after, not being able to really fundraise for a while. So just invite everybody to sign up for that. You can sign up to volunteer, sign up to run, walk, just show up and cheer us on. You can sign up on runsignup.com, and then you search the Thoroughbred Trot. That's what they're calling it. And so I think it's going to be a really fun event on a Saturday afternoon in May. Also, something else that's exciting is really through some community effort, they've been able to secure enough funding and donations to construct 2 Gaga Ball pits. Apparently Gaga Ball is the thing that lots of kids are to do these days. So that's something new and exciting that'll give kids something else fun to do, to get outside, especially when they can have their mask breaks and play that. So I just wanted to share that today, and that's all. Mr. Asher?
Ms. Glass, can I also say one more thing?
Yes, ma'am.
I'm sorry. I just wanted to say also that I'd like to extend sincere condolence to Miss Bradley's family. I know that her father-in-law passed away unexpectedly, and as a board, we don't always get along, but I know collectively we're all praying for her and her family.
Yes, thank you very much. Mr. Asher, do you want to do the instructional and equity report, please?
Good evening once again, and thank you. What I'm going to do as part of the instructional update is just elaborate on what Mr. Atkins had already talked about with our virtual instruction going on. So today was the 96th day of school. Hooray. That means Friday is the 100th day. So if you've had elementary students, you know what a big deal that is. So that's a great thing. But we made it till day 91 until we had to start adjusting to virtual instruction. And here we have yet another acronym of TRI, so I just want to explain that and go a little bit more in depth about both of those acronyms. So first off, NTI, that's not new. We've had that for a while, even pre-pandemic. We revisited the plans for this back in November because it had been, at that point, had been pretty smooth sailing as far as in-person instruction. And our mindset at that point was we need to prepare for weather days, for winter coming up, and those were going to happen every so often as weather came upon us. But as we well know, during these times, plans can change, and when they do, it happens very quickly and sometimes drastically. So last week, we started NTI due to the weather, but had to continue the remainder of the week because of the rising number of cases, not only with students, but also with staff, and the impact that had, that Mr. Atkins had spoke to. So NTI, non-traditional instruction, remains an option for COVID-related issues per legislation if all schools in a district have to be out. Now that leads me to TRI, the new acronym we have, temporary remote instruction. So if an individual school, grade level, or even classroom is heavily impacted by COVID, then TRI is now an option for that. This was an option put in place by legislature back during a special session back in September, but that provision expired in December 31st. So basically, at this current session, it was basically renewed and for the second half of the school year, allowing for 10 TRI days within a district. And so again, that's for individual schools, which we're experiencing now at the high school, or could even be down to grade level or classroom, as I said. Through last week, with the extended use of remote and virtual days recently, the expectations now for synchronous instruction have increased. And for example, students here at the high school, they had to log on for each of their classes for that synchronous learning on a set schedule, because you can only go so long with kind of take-home assignments, so to speak, and we need to get back on camera. And what I want to say to sum up here, regardless of what acronym is used, our administrators, teachers, and staff are to be commended for their ability to adjust to the circumstances. We greatly appreciate the time and effort they put into making plans, adjusting those, then making new plans, because the situation has changed yet again. It may not always be perfect, but believe me, they're doing their very best to keep up and ensure that teaching and learning are moving forward. So I appreciate to our school staffs from the top to the bottom on all they've done recently. So any questions about yet another acronym, as I said, that we have?
I don't have any questions.
No, just a big thank you once again. You summed it up pretty well, but I have 2 children in high school, and I see the amount of time that teachers are spending, and when I'm getting emails and updates and turnaround changes on how class is going to go tomorrow that we might get at 10 o'clock tonight. So I know our teachers are working really, really hard, and we're all really appreciative of everything that they're doing.
Thank you. My equity update is relatively short. You've been involved in some communications as far as our second round of assessment, and really what that's going to do is show our growth over time of our cultural intelligence. And really we're going to start another phase of this, because based on the work we've done thus far, we'll potentially revamp our action plan. And what does the next phase or step to this equity work, what does that look like? So that is coming up as soon as I can possibly get that scheduled. It's a little complicated. We talked about this in our equity team meeting with the number of folks involved. So that's a good problem to have with how many people we have involved, but logistics play into that as well. So stay tuned for that. Also want to thank WEEF. We've talked about the diversity project, and WEEF continues to fund that. We were able to, at our January meeting, approve 3 more diversity projects that came in. All 3 from the high school actually here, just related for a number of different things, and what the overarching premise is and what the goal is just to celebrate diversity and spread that within our community. So we're appreciative of WEEF and coming up with the idea for that and also funding those projects. Any questions related to equity?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And are you?
stay.
I think you stay. Yeah. So moving on
Take
to
two.
item D, we have some recognitions tonight. I think Mr. Asher's going to lead us into that.
That's right. Woodford County School District is pleased to introduce our next class of National Board Certified Teachers. NBCTs for short are accomplished educators, another acronym, accomplished educators who demonstrate the knowledge and skills to advance student learning and achievement. Woodford County is proud to announce that 2 teachers in our district have achieved National Board Certification this year for 21-22. This brings our total to 32 National Board teachers currently teaching in our district. Our most recent board certified teachers include Miss Amy Gordon from Northside Elementary and Mr. Adam Swingle from Woodford County Middle School. In order to become a board certified teacher, candidates voluntarily complete a rigorous certification program that consists of 4 components: assessment of content knowledge, reflection on student work samples, video and analysis of teaching practice, and documentation of the impact of assessments and collaboration on student learning. These components were designed by teachers for teachers to identify the essential knowledge and skills required to advance student learning and achievement. This is a very serious commitment of time and energy, but teachers who achieve certification describe the process as transformative. So please join me in congratulating both Amy Gordon and Adam Swingle for achieving this gold standard in teacher certification.
If the board would please come around and we'll.
We can do together and then I'll snag some individually with their, Okay, 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Awesome. Yay! You guys rock.
Okay, next I'll invite Judge Executive James Kay up to the podium.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair, school board members, Mr. Superintendent, all the teachers, administrators, staff, principals, and faculty, and citizens here. I'm here on behalf of Woodford County to thank our school board. Thank you for putting your name on the ballot. Thank you for serving in a role that is often thankless, that is very, very important. In fact, I believe that the school district is the most important governing body in our community and most communities across this nation. And that's why it's important to have citizen leaders who care about our teachers, our students, and our schools. I'm extremely proud to be a product of Woodford County Schools, as is my wife. And my 2 little boys go to Northside. I see Principal Hunley there. And I can tell you all that when they're on their Google Meets, they do it just about as good as the Woodford County Fiscal Court can operate the Zoom. So we're doing good things in Woodford County Schools. And I know that when you're in politics, when you're on the ballot, when you're in government, that's not always easy. But that's not why you do it. And you certainly don't do it for the pay. You do it because you care about Woodford County. And this is the greatest county in Kentucky, if not America. And it's because of our people. But our greatest asset, what we have that is better than anything else, are our children. And as the superintendent has said, and a lot of smart people that I admire have said, we are one county, one school, one heartbeat. And that rings true. And you all are the board of directors of our school system, a school system that we should be proud of. These teachers, these administrators, these students, Mrs. Gorton, Mr. Swindle, the National Board Certified teachers that you just presented, these are products of your leadership. They're products of our school system, something that we should be proud of. So I'm here on behalf of Woodford County to say thank you. I'd like to thank our board chair, Danny Bradley, and send condolences to Mark and her family on the loss of his stepfather. But I'm proud to be here. I'm proud to be in this library that I studied in as a student. I'm proud that Woodford County cares about student voice, that we have a student representative like Lizzie Schrock, president of our FFA, on the school board. That's important. Student voice is important, and you all care about that. And while your job is thankless, and in the age of social media, there's plenty of criticism to go around, at the end of the day, you are all working together for the better of Woodford County. And as your judge executive, I am proud to be a partner. I'm proud of the work that we've done with Superintendent Adkins, Board Chair Bradley, and the school system, Woodford County school system, our FFA, our teachers, our administrators, our school board, led Woodford County's effort for Western Kentucky disaster relief. It was led by our school system, and that's appropriate and important because you all have such great leadership roles. Ms. Richardson, I see you on there, a proud Woodford County graduate. This school system means a lot to Woodford County. It's the most important thing we have, and our greatest assets are under your leadership. So tonight I say thank you. I appreciate what you do. I understand what you do, and I support you and offer Woodford County government as a partner anytime for anything to support our great school system. Thank you for your leadership and your work.
Thank you, Judge Kay. Okay, moving on to item E. That was the amendment to the agenda. We're going to the school improvement plans. That's, oh, go ahead. I'm sorry. Yeah, no, Mr. Asher is going to speak to it.
Yes, while we have our principals here just to answer questions as needed, they'll get their turn at the mic when we make our tour around the schools here beginning in a couple months. But it is loaded in your online agenda, each of those CSIPs, Comprehensive School Improvement Plan. It's informational only because actually this is a school level process that goes through their site-based councils for approval. But again, we do have our principals here tonight if you did have any specific questions for them. So I'll open it up.
Does anybody have any questions for any of the principals? Ms. Richardson, do you have any questions for any of the principals tonight? That looks like she's frozen. I think we'll take that as a no. Thank you, Mr. Asher.
Thank you.
Can you hear me now?
I do think that there was a lot of time and effort spent on those, especially since I sat in with Ms. Kaiser and her group as they were reviewing that. I know that there's a lot of thought, a lot of time, a lot of effort. I thought all of them were written very clearly with very defined goals, action plans, and measurable results. So I appreciated the clarity, the ease of which it was to understand them, and thank you.
Yes, I appreciate it too, and I thank you all for coming tonight on your evening. Okay, we'll move on to item 6, Treasurer's Report. Mr. Martello?
Good evening.
Good evening.
I've got a real quick PowerPoint, like each month. This month it's going to be a little bit different. We're going to go back to the old format where I just speak to the cash balances by fund.
This one?
Yes, that one right there, the 4-slide one. Please. You can go ahead and go to the next slide. So like we do every month, the monthly expenditure and revenue report, the balance sheet, and the cash balance by fund monthly summary report. Are there any questions on the monthly expenditure and revenue or the balance sheet? If they're not, I'll go ahead and move to the cash balance by fund. Just normal expenditures here. We've got the general fund. You know, every month the majority of those expenditures are salary and fringe. Special revenue fund, which is Fund 2, which is all the federal and state grants. District activity and school activity, funds 21 and 25. Capital outlay, the $910,000. And our expenditures year to date on both our CARES, our GEARS, our Esser 2 and Esser 3 as noted, and then the balance on the one-to-one device insurance fund, or project I should say, not fund. As noted, we've got a balance of a little bit over, I think it's 46 or 48,000. You can go ahead to the next slide. On the building fund, so a little bit over 3.1 for the balance on that building fund. Those dollars came in from the tax proceeds. Construction fund, you can see the balance there. Debt service, any balance on the 126. Food service, 767. The food service is doing well this year with the additional dollars that I've referred to in the past for the opportunity for all students, whether or not they qualify for free or reduced lunch, to receive an opportunity for a breakfast or a lunch opportunity. Daycare operations, that's trending in a positive manner, again, because of the federal opportunity, the federal dollars this year, supporting that program. And then finally, the community ed fund. Any questions on the cash balance by fund?
I know in the past we've talked about some supply chain issues with the food service fund.
Yes, ma'am.
How are those shaping up these days?
I know Miss Courtney met with the local cooperative. They were having to ration the distribution center, and I know she's actually online.
She's actually with us.
This evening, and so she could probably speak a little bit better than I can if she's listening currently. I know she was here. There she goes. She's unmuted, so I'll go ahead and let her start. Ms. Squire.
Hello. Yes, we're looking into actually building a freezer warehouse over at Southside right now to store some of our extra commodities that'll help us with the supply chain shortages as well.
And that's, you know, in response. I know Ms. Squire and I have talked multiple times because we've had that balance to go up in recent years. So that's just one of those things that she's being proactive to take advantage for looking at some of those larger capital outlay expenses. She's actually also working hard to get some estimates on some of our freezer monitoring devices, because we're having to manually monitor those temperatures for those freezers. And so that would be a cost-effective measure over time, I would say, you know, if it's reasonably priced, to make sure, you know, food does not spoil, you know, when it's adequately temped, and also a safety issue for those eating those products. Do you have anything to add on that, Ms. Squire?
No, not this time.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any questions? All right. If they're none. Ms. Richardson? Okay.
No, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Martello. Is there a motion to accept the treasurer's report?
So moved.
Chair seconds. Any discussion?
I would just say that I am again going to be voting no on this item. Really, the main reason is I am just not in favor of how ESSER funds are being used to supplant the general fund budget at this time. And I think there are a lot of questions. I know that I have emailed about budget questions that just haven't been answered yet. So hopefully I'll get an email back on some of those soon.
Any other discussion? Ms. McHale?
No, thank you.
Ms. Richardson? Any discussion?
No, thank you.
We will vote. All those in favor?
No, thank you.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any
Aye.
opposed?
Nay.
Motion passes 3-1. Public comment, Ms. Bailey, do you have public comment?
Okay, we just have one that was submitted virtually, but I do believe there's been some sign-ups. Yes, okay, Angel says there's some people here to sign up, but the virtual one is from Adrienne Southworth. She says, this year, budget and treasurer's report is the agenda item. This year of all years is the best opportunity we have to improve the numerous lagging issues our schools face. There should be no legitimate excuse for lack of heat and air in our buildings when we are flush with federal funds through Esser and other COVID relief. The federal rules are clear that federal funds are not to be used for existing building programs. We need to be filling the achievement gap rather than sitting on the dollars or laundering them toward the building program. Adrienne Southworth.
Thank you, Ms. Bailey. Okay, first we have Michelle Nance. Public comment is 3 minutes each. Ms. McKell, will you time for us, please?
Absolutely. I'm ready when you are.
You ready?
I'm ready.
All right, go ahead.
Tonight my comment is about truth and transparency regarding the $6.7 million in Esser funds that our school district has received in the form of COVID relief. I have shared this information directly with the school board, Mr. Adkins, Mr. Martello, and the teachers and employees of our school district. This is not hearsay information. This information comes directly from my open records request documents from the Kentucky Department of Education, as well as from the Woodford County School System. I'm not here tonight expecting any answers to my questions concerning the district's use of ESSER funds. Despite giving multiple public comments and submitting multiple emails on this topic, I have received 0 response from 4 members of this school board or Superintendent Adkins. And I do not expect tonight to be any different, as the one board member who does ask tough questions at these meetings is also kept in the dark and doesn't get answers either. I have been contacted via email and telephone, as well as had multiple meetings with multiple teachers voicing their frustrations and concerns about what is going on in our school district. While the financial issues are a definite problem, the even greater concern is the negative atmosphere developing within the school. Our teachers are at their breaking point. They are overwhelmed by the lack of resources, the lack of support from the administration, and they do not feel as though they have a voice. They fear retribution and retaliation for speaking up and asking questions. This is not conducive to a healthy work environment, nor is it conducive to a healthy learning environment for our students. If this is not corrected and corrected quickly, I fear that the results will be that our great teachers will go elsewhere. This is a warning. Henceforth, I'm requesting the board take the following actions. Number 1, pause the spending of the ARP ESSER funds and involve parents, students, taxpayers, and especially the teachers in deciding what is the best use of these one-time funds. After all, the teachers are the most knowledgeable when it comes to our students' academic and mental health needs. Number 2, before moving forward with the new high school project, address the numerous questions and concerns that have been raised and ignored over the past 3 years by teachers, students, and members of the community. Number 3, be transparent with financial matters. People want to know where the budget stands without the infusion of these one-time federal dollars. In closing, as far as our school district's use of ESSER funds is concerned, I have shared the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help me God. Tonight I call upon the parents, the community, and especially the teachers to stand up to the superintendent and this school board and demand that this money be used for its intended purpose, which is to address student learning loss, mental health concerns, and COVID mitigation. These issues continue to impact our children on a daily basis. Now is the time to get brave. Your voices matter and deserve to be heard. You have the power. Do not allow yourselves or our children to suffer another day. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Next, we have Sarah McCown. You ready, Ms. McGill?
I am ready.
All right, go ahead.
Good evening. I'm here tonight to speak about the lack of follow-up from the community forum that was held to discuss plans for the new high school on October 26, 2021. Members of our community were encouraged to attend, and there was also an option to participate virtually. My question to the board is, what did you hear from the community? I was unable to participate and have searched the new high school website for a summary of the feedback and have been unable to find anything. I have friends and neighbors that attended, so I have an idea about what their concerns are, but what did you hear from everyone else? We need a new high school, no doubt about that. But it's important that the public know exactly what we will and what we will not be getting when the project goes out to bid. Folks should know that there are no plans for a practice field at the high school, no plans for a track. That even with a brand new high school building, there will still be some component of student athletes having to drive or be bused from the new high school to wherever there is adequate space and equipment for them to practice. My next question to the board is, what do you plan to do with the feedback you received at the community forum? I believe it's important to close the loop and to let the community know. This is feedback we've received, and this is why we can or cannot accommodate it. From my own experiences, failure to provide this kind of feedback leaves those who participate in the process and ask questions thinking, what's the point in commenting or participating if it doesn't make a difference? Obviously, the decisions made by the board are not going to please everyone, but acknowledging participation and concerns received by folks, whether at community forums or monthly board meetings, at least helps people to feel like they've been heard. Thank you. And I would like to donate the remainder of my time to Dorothea Belford.
Ms. Cooper, what's the policy for donating time?
Our attorney has actually said that there is no such thing.
Okay.
You can't donate the time.
Okay. Marty Day, you're next, ma'am.
Do I adjust, or do I just, it'll listen to me?
You can adjust.
Not being very tall?
I
Something
might have
like
to
that.
unscrew it. Look at it. Okay.
That's
Ms.
okay.
Ms. Kell, you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay, go ahead.
I listened to Mr. Atkins' long list of things that we spent our Esser money on. I'm a good note taker. And I did not hear him use the word intervention. We have intervention in our county in several forms. An intervention is an action taken to improve a situation. We focus on it in reading and math. At the elementary schools, we have full and part-time positions, and those are the sole jobs of those individuals. At the middle schools, the RTI and the intervention work with students is incorporated into the teachers' daily schedules, but it is not individual positions. It's part of their daily schedule, and they teach other things. At the high school, it looks different. We have SPED, special education. We have resource and co-taught classes. We have special classes for students who need assistance. We have ELL students. We have 504 plans and services there. So we try to address all learning loss. There are various estimates. You can pick the one that you like. The one I looked up today said, nationally, we are approximately 4 months behind in reading education across the board, and we are 5 months behind in math, and that is due to the COVID-19 pandemic. So if you're not familiar, and as a reminder, Esser is the purpose, and what it actually stands for is Elementary and Secondary School Emergency Relief. Let that sink in. Emergency relief. Something that's caused by a disaster, and this pandemic is a disaster on a national scope. We should not be using this money for things that do not directly relate to the COVID-19 pandemic. It is to safely reopen and sustain the safe operation of schools and to address the impact of the coronavirus pandemic on our nation's students, and that came directly from a KDE site. common words, people that say words that are used every day, I've heard already today, is to address the achievement loss and the effects on social and emotional wellness. This is students and staff. These are our important resources and the reason we are a school district. What could be more important than addressing these needs? Please fully fund all requested intervention positions across our district using our Esser funds directly. These should not be calculated as a part of each building's teaching allotment, but fully funded as separate online or separate line items in our budget. Isn't this what each of you would like to have for your children? If you have children in the Woodford system, your grandchildren, and as well as all of the students across our district. It is your job as elected officials to do the right thing. Please let your actions match your words. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Day. Next, we have Thomas Gillespie. Oh, okay. Elizabeth Burge.
Hello, I'm Elizabeth Burge, and I'm the art teacher here at the high school, and I'm just here to put in just a word for our kids as you guys are considering the Esser funds. I've taught here since 2011, and I was virtual. Well, I wasn't virtual. I was in person and virtual through the pandemic. I was an in-class teacher the whole time, and I'm just here to talk about the changes I've seen in our kids and how depressed they are, and like the mental health piece of our students right now is, it's like, I'm not gonna cry, but it's like nothing I've ever seen before. I fortunately teach art where it's a pretty happy place, but I have colleagues in all the other classrooms, and it is so hard emotionally, physically, and just to watch your kids and only get to see their eyes and not know what's going on. And for me, being a teacher, I see myself as a social worker first, and I'm sure most of my colleagues are the same. And I'm just here to beg you to please try to help us build our school community back. We've got most of our kids here at the school, probably I would say half of them have never gone to school at Woodford County High School because they, when the pandemic started, our freshmen were in 7th grade, and many of them have not been together with their friends, and I don't think for us as grown-ups, we can kind of handle the problems of the world and what we go through, but they don't have the skills to do so. And I've really seen they've gone backwards, as far as their maturity. And I'm just asking, and I'll do whatever I can if I have to, I could have art classes on the weekends and, have kids come and try to, do things here to help kids get to know each other again. Because I think we're really missing that piece as the adults. I think there's so much more that can be done to help them get through this and move forward. And, just being in it every single day, our hearts break every day for our kids. And I'm just here to talk for them, not me. And thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Birch. She's so great.
Okay. Next we have Dorothea Belford.
I just want to thank you all for allowing us to speak tonight at the board meeting. I have several things I'd like to talk about, but tonight I'll just address the cleanliness and the overall current condition of the high school. At the end of 2021, according to the budget, I guess it was released by Mr. Martello, there was just under $1 million in the district's capital outlay fund, which was restricted for the new school. I was told by a board member that it's customary for districts to restrict funds in this manner, but my question is it customary for schools to restrict these funds when they have unaddressed mold issues, rodent infestation, flooding problems, when the ceilings are falling in, and when the bleachers are in disrepair? This week, I have also asked a board member and the high school directly, how many custodians work at the high school? You would think that's a simple question, yet I couldn't get a clear answer. The guess that I got was 3, maybe 4. So I don't know what the answer is. It could be 12. I have no idea. But the fact that I asked and was unable, 2 people and unable to get an answer strikes me as odd. But according to facilities plans from across the country that I've looked at on the Google, it says that a school our size should employ 7.7 custodians. Serendipitously, I spent the whole day Saturday at Anderson County High School. Anderson County High School is 2 years newer than our school. So our school is 2 years older than Anderson County. We have 100 more students. Their school is absolutely beautiful. It's clean. It's all the bathroom areas are clean. I mean, it was really, I mean, I thought maybe it was built in 2000. I mean, it looked so nice. So I actually saw a custodian emptying a trash can, so I went over and talked to him. And he said he's heard about our situation here because he has someone in his family who teaches at the high school and family members who live in our community. And he told me that they have 7 custodians, which is what I found to be what we should have here. 5 work 8-hour shifts overnight. 2 of them are there during the day. I would ask that you consider using some of these capital outlay funds that you're restricted for the new high school, some of the Esser funds, to hire maintenance people and custodians for the school, because just as Judge Executive Kay was saying, it's hard to be proud of a school, and we all want to have school pride, but it's hard to be proud of a school that's dirty, that basically the people in charge are letting fall down around us. And to that note, I spoke with a board member this week, and I asked why we don't have more custodians, how many we have, that sort of thing. Put $1 more into that money pit, and I quote. And when I said, well, you have to repair and maintain the high school because we have students, okay. Well, because we have students here, and we have people that work there, so it has to be a clean place to work.
Thank you, Ms. Belford, your time is up. Thank you.
Great.
Thank you. Okay, Mr. Atkins, will you take us through the consent agenda, please?
I sure will. So the consent agenda, approved donation request. There's nothing out of the ordinary there for this month. Approved fundraiser request. It's your typical common fundraiser request that we do basically every year. I do think there was one of the calendar types that were added to a fundraiser. Basically, the group will send out their calendars and you sign off on which day you would like to sponsor. If it's day 2, then you pay $2, that type of thing. Approved travel request, your basic Kentucky Assembly, those types of things. Nothing out of the ordinary there. Approved use of bus request, that's for our 4-H group. They use a bus or I would say use one of our buses to help transport our kids to their facility or their camp. So it's a mutual partnership. Approved SFCC offer of assistance. That's just customary to accept that. Approve any grants. As I mentioned, we had received a couple of grants, but I think we've already approved those. And approve a contract that was, that's actually through Pearson, which is the group that does ACT, or I guess you would say design and develops the ACT test. However, this is a pilot program through the Kentucky Department of Education, and basically it's another type of a adaptive test that our students can take online. And the beauty of this test, though, instead of MAP or the ACT, is we get to design the test basically from a bank of test questions based on the standards that we have taught up to that date. So it would give us an opportunity then to do that, as well as this very possibly could end up being the next state assessment. So it really gives us a foot in the door with that. So that would be a good opportunity for that. That's all we have on the consent.
I have a quick question about the testing item that was added. Is there a cost to the district associated with that?
There is. It's $5 per student, and Mr. Esser and Ms. Jones have gone through. They allowed us, because it's a pilot, they allowed us to go through and identify some groups, and Mr. Esser and Ms. Jones together identified the groups that they wanted to test with that. I think total was it $3,500 the cost.
Approximately, yes.
And is that per year, or how does that work?
We're just doing it through the remainder of this year.
Yeah, it's just a pilot.
So 35 is the total?
35, it's $5 per student, so it was, where that math was, but it was $3,500.
Thank you, thank you. I just always want to know the total and the dollar amount before I approve anything, so I really appreciate having that information. Thank you.
Sure.
Is there a motion to accept the consent agenda?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Any further discussion? Ms. Richardson, any discussion? Yes. Okay.
No, ma'am, thank you.
All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes.
Aye.
Motion passes 4-0. Okay, we'll move on to our regular agenda. Item A. Do you want to take us through that, or do you want me to read those out?
I think you,
Okay.
I think you do that.
Is there a motion to accept the notification of personnel matters?
So moved.
Chair seconds. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Motion passes 4-0. I was. Is there a motion to accept the notification of payment of bills?
So moved.
Okay. Is there a second? We'll say Ms. McHale second. Okay, we have a motion by Ms. Springate and a second by Ms. McHale. All those in favor? Say aye.
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 Motion passes 4-0. Is there a motion to approve meeting minutes of the December 6th, 2021 board meeting, all in attendance?
So moved.
Okay, there's a motion by Ms. Springate and a second by Ms. McHale. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Motion passes 4-0. Is there a motion to approve meeting minutes of the December 13th, 2021, 5 p.m. and 6 p.m. board meeting? Ms. Richardson was absent.
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion by Ms. Springate and a second by Ms. McHale. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Did you vote, Ms. Richardson? Did you vote?
Yes, aye.
Okay, motion passes 4-0. All right, is there a motion to accept the 2022-2023 draft budget?
So moved.
Chair seconds. Mr. Martello, do you want to go over that with us?
I would say that it's been a very active budget cycle so far in the legislation, and there have been two different budgets proposed. I think the House and the Senate both have kind of moved forward with the House budget. Both are friendly education. One not as, with some increase in seat possibly, with some increase in transportation possibly. So those are some things that would play into once the budget cycle's over, then we would be able to go back and obviously we have a deadline for our tentative budget. So that's where we'll really start seeing what the numbers truly look like, because we're not sure what's going to happen with our General Assembly.
Okay, this is just a formal presentation, and like Mr. Atkins just said, it's a fluid process, and it's a 9-month process. So this is just the very first start, and there'll be a number of changes, both on the revenue and the expenditure side, as we get through a full year with another 4 months of trend data. And I've always said this in recent months. We are in the third year of a unusual situation in terms of the expenditure and the revenue side. So we do our best in terms to project with trend analysis and those types of things. But again, we're in our third year of COVID, so we've got some different areas that are unique in the last few fiscal years. With that said, go ahead and turn the slide to page 2, please. We're right now looking at the draft budget here in January. In the May board meeting, we have to approve the working budget, And then in September, we do the tentative. The tentative obviously is the last piece 9 months from today. Let's go ahead and slide to slide 3. We do not know our property assessments. We'll know that further into the year. I would imagine we had some significant, if you look at house pricing or prices, in terms of that segment of the economy, it's done very well. And so hopefully those assessments will do okay for us.
If I'm not mistaken, that's sometime in July.
Yes, sir.
And then it has to be reported to Frankfurt sometime in that.
Yes, sir. Like Mr. Atkins just alluded to, any unknown legislative mandates, both a mandate and or positive in terms of additional revenue. Continued unknown overall costs associated with the COVID environment, a need for conservative budget planning. Traditionally, that's what we've tried to do. And then federal funds. We do have these Esser dollars. We do have the additional dollars in child nutrition and daycare or after school. So these funds will go away, and no one is not acknowledging that. And so we have to be cognizant in this environment. Let's go ahead and turn the page to slide 4. This budget is based on a little bit over 3,700 in terms of the AADA, and that's based on 21-22 trend data. The additional students versus the 3,500 amount is because the additional 129 portion of the half-day kindergarten. So that's the only reason there for that additional increase, just for an estimate. General property tax revenue. This is an additional 4% increase to the revenue, and I want to caution this is not regarding the tax rate in terms of that may be adopted or not. This is just regarding the increase in assessments of the home values and property that would be occurred by the property assessment group.
I think traditionally in Woodford County, the property assessments have grown somewhere in the neighborhood of 3.5% to 5%. So he kind of just fell in the middle with that.
Yes. Turning the slide to slide 5. This budget does not include the special revenue fund. It does not include Fund 2. It does not include district activity nor school activity. It's not a requirement, not until the tentative budget. Go to slide 6, please. Capital outlay, a little bit over $371,000. That's driven by the enrollment count. It's $100 per AADA. Building fund is an estimate of $3.4 million. And then our debt service fund cost a little bit over $2.5 for our current bond payment structure.
I have a quick question.
Yes.
On the capital outlay, what is the amount, the 80% that is restricted?
Whatever 80% of that is, that 371.
It looks like it's gone up a little bit from what it was last year, so I just had that question. So
Yeah, it flows with the enrollment.
okay, and then can you just explain where the the funds come from? Like capital outlay is the $100 of the SEEK formula per student. And then, of course, we restrict 80% of that for the new high school has been restricted. Can you talk a little about the building and the debt service funds?
The building fund are dollars that are coming from both of the nickels that we maintain. And then the debt service, that's the current debt payments that are owed within that time frame. Turning to slide 7. Child nutrition. We do not yet know whether or not we'll have the additional opportunity for the children that do not qualify for a free or reduced lunch. If the federal agriculture department will continue to provide that opportunity. So that we just don't know what that dollar amount will be. If we're going to receive those additional revenue dollars for FY23.
What time of year do they approximately make that determination, Mr. Martello? Do you know?
Was it April or May of last fiscal year, Ms. Quire?
I apologize, I didn't hear the question.
Mr. Atkins asked if we have an idea of the time frame that they'll come back and let us know in terms of whether or not the opportunity for kids to receive a meal, they do not qualify for free or reduced lunch. I thought it was late spring, but correct me if I'm wrong.
That's a possibility. Right now, we do know that everyone will receive free meals through the summer of 22.
Okay, so moving on to slide 8. Enterprise Daycare Fund. Again, we need to continue to monitor that. We do have those federal dollars coming in to assist for that program currently. Turning the page to slide 9. Our staffing is based on our staffing matrix or staffing formula. This budget does not include it does include a step increase or an experience increase, but it does not include an increase to the different cells of the salary schedule itself. So we did do 2% to each individual cell in FY22, but this budget does not reflect that for FY23.
I have a quick question about the staffing formulas. Based on some of the public comments that we got tonight, it sounds like that might be something that I would be interested in discussing and addressing. You know, the idea that was brought forth tonight about having those interventionalists as separate positions that are line item kind of district paid, so that the school doesn't necessarily have to fund those or utilize those out of their staffing formulas, I thought was a really great idea, and that's something I think, you know, from time to time we need to explore the staffing formulas. I know I've just anecdotally heard stories where schools have had an increase in students and haven't been given an extra position, and I understand there are reasons for things, but what I don't want to see is, you know, the reading or the math interventionalist pulled away from doing that valuable work and, you know, being utilized just as a classroom teacher or some other sort of thing like that. So I really appreciated that idea tonight from a staff member, and I think that's something that the board really could look at. I don't know that we've looked at that with this new group, but definitely staffing is you know, vital.
Slide 10, confirmation of grants or grant revenues or for future considerations. So we do not know those additional grant revenues for the different normal federal allocations. Long-term maintenance needs, as we saw this year, we walked into a fiscal year with an emergency or situation that needed to be addressed regarding the bleacher repair at the high school. And so you'll see here in a few minutes a recommendation with a construction company to go forward and start on that project at the earliest in March or on or after March 14th. So that became it's become a pretty pricey maintenance item. So, you know, just as a caution, there are those things that'll pop up that we have to address. Possible use of capital outlay fund, just as a notation. Unknown overall costs associated with COVID, and these are just items to note. We did have 2 significant insurance claims recently in FY21. One was the bleacher flood at the elementary school, as well as the water damage flood here at the high school. So that it's not if it will affect our insurance premium, but what will be the increase. And so, just as a caution for FY23. Let's go ahead and go to slide 11.
Can I ask a couple quick questions on this slide first? Do you have kind of an estimate of how much you think that insurance the rates are gonna increase? Any kind of idea?
You know, you have both the claim and the claims and the market itself, because replacement value with the rise in construction costs is increasing the market as a whole. I would just be guessing, you know, 30% at a minimum.
Okay, is it something you could kind of check into and let us know?
I can, but I'm also, it'll be closer to later in the spring when that information comes available.
That's okay, I appreciate the timeline. The other thing is, with long-term maintenance needs, I know we had someone speak tonight about a lot of maintenance needs, and I know the high school roof is well past its used by date and desperately needs to be replaced. And with 80% of capital outlay having been restricted for the past few years for the high school, is there some sort of itemized list of this is the most important repair, this comes next, with costs associated with that could be shared with us, board members?
It has been shared in the spring. I think it was May. They actually did an assessment. An independent group came in and assessed every building and the different core components of each building. And so that report has already been provided to the board.
And so the high school roof repair, what's the timeline on getting that fixed then? Because I assume it was on the list since roofs need to be repaired, around the 20-year mark. And this is, I think some parts of it are 26, 27 years old, something like that. And don't quote me on the number because I'm not exactly sure, but I believe that's what I read in that report, or in the report when we were asked to repair the roof and then decided not to. So I guess, can we just get a timeline on when that's going to be repaired and how much it's going to cost?
Ms. Brink, I speak my direction for Mr. Atkins, and in turn seeks it from the board. So I'll let him speak to that in terms of the direction that I'm requested.
I think that would be helpful if we could understand. I'm not just thinking about the roof, but just in general, Mr. Atkins, what your prioritization would be on that list of more major maintenance items that we would need to include in this budget going forward. I assume there's a normal maintenance expense that's in here that would cover some of that, but if there's anything extraordinary
that's something we explored today as a group, that it looks as though our maintenance costs are increasing somewhere in the neighborhood of $200,000-300,000 a year right now. So just as we looked, and your district facility plan kind of leads you in that direction as well. So those are things that once we can get into a budget cycle and see how we're progressing through that, then we'll certainly need to address in the spring.
And I think as we get more in the process and we see what's going to happen with the tax rates and what's going to happen with the property values, we can maybe add some things onto it. You might have to take some things off of it, but I think if we could see, what the kind of wish list would be, that would be, and what would be covered in the normal sort of budget would be helpful.
And when looking at, I know we had some heating issues here at the high school. It was out per maintenance, and I talked to them today. They had it fixed the next morning, but they had to fabricate a piece because this is about I think they told me 97 unit on top. Now the heating and cooling issues at Northside are all still under warranty, so we're kind of at the mercy of a company. We submit requests, they come out, think they have it fixed, leave, it goes out again. I think right now they have it fixed, but it is under warranty, which is the beauty of having newer equipment.
Yeah, and I think, again, it's a good time to note the supply chain constraints that we're seeing and the length of time that it's taken to get both the bleachers here done as well as the heat over at Northside is not reflective on the school board's commitment to providing safe and warm environments for our students. We are at the mercy, like we would be personally if we needed somebody to come out and fix our heat right now. So I think those are important things as well.
Those are great items to note. And just as a side note, I've got the work orders here that the maintenance department team has done. In fiscal year 21, they completed 223 work orders. Not that they haven't worked any harder this year than they did last, but we're doing a great job in terms of documenting all of the resolutions that are happening for the kids and the staff in this district. Mr. Sherman Green is doing a great job in terms of his leadership and the team as a whole as well. And so they've gone from 223 work orders in FY21 to 491 just through today. Mm-hmm. And so you're talking about triple the amount of documented activity to benefit these facilities.
There's 5 of those guys.
Yeah. Well, and hopefully what that will do will give you more clarity as to what it does cost or the activities that are needed either on an annual basis or whatever that periodicity is going forward to budget a little better.
And again, we see a lot of things, much as you spoke on, but we see materials increasing when you can get them right now.
Right.
But everything labor, materials. I had a heating and cooling guy tell me the other day that over the last will be the next 3 years, that they've seen a 10% increase throughout each year, which would be 30% on the year, which is, it makes it difficult on them as well, because they're we'll say they're pricing themselves out of business, but they got, they're trying to make a living, and they have to. So yeah, it's been a difficult situation here, with all the materials and labor too.
Well, and also, can you all hear me?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, I think it's also important to point out that we were never told to actually replace the entire roof. Actually, we were advised not to. And then the roof, I think at Northside is still under warranty as well. Is that correct?
I think it should be, along with, like I said,
The roofing repair company told us, yeah. They specifically said not to repair the entire roof.
Again, I would just say we received documents last year that clearly showed that a roof replacement was needed and was the plan. I know we did have, the folks that do the repairs, one of those folks came to the meeting and spoke, but I don't think he said the roof didn't need to be repaired. I think he just said he understood that, we have to make decisions about when the timing of that is and, considerations. I guess my biggest point would be that we are still in this building, students are still in this building, and they definitely need a clean and safe environment. And so I think if we I don't know if we could put that on as an agenda item and go back and look and kind of see, but I definitely, know that the end of the year, or the end of the lifespan for roofs, we're well past that with this high school roof. And I think, when we have students coming and speaking about, the conditions, the roof, the mold, we have teachers speaking, we have community members speaking. I just think that's something that we definitely, need to explore and stay on top of. So I just thought that was a good time to talk about it while we're talking about our maintenance needs. So.
Turning the
Well, but I also think that it's important that we take the advice of the professional companies that we hire to come in and consult with us. And we were specifically told that the plan was, when they say that we should not replace the entire roof, that's not going to fix the problem. I think we need to look into that. We need to take that in consideration, what they say. Sherry, if you'd like to share what information you have, because I don't recall seeing where you said that they said we need to replace the entire roof. If you want to share that with the other board members, I'd be happy to revisit that next month. But I don't recall that at all. And am I correct that the north side roof is still under warranty?
I would be speaking out of turn on that, Ms. Richardson. I can research and get back with you ASAP.
I do know that the heating and cooling unit is, Ms. Richardson. I do know that it is, because that's how we've been working through the process of the on and off again fixture. Yeah, I do know it is under warranty.
I'm pretty sure what they said about the high school roof was that they wouldn't recommend repairing the entire roof now with our plan to build a new school.
I think I heard something a little different, and when I read the documents, they said something a little different. If Ms. Cooper wouldn't mind just placing that on the agenda for next month, we can just, maybe get the document sent out to us again and kind of revisit that. So I just think that's an important thing for sure. So thank you. I will. Thank you.
Okay, moving to slide 11. These are just items of future consideration. We do have summer school. We are paying that enhanced summer school with Esser dollars. Remember the rise in the classified teacher retirement rate that we're having to absorb. The increase on the salary schedule that we're maintaining and will maintain in future fiscal years. The utility rate increase that we had this year of 11%. If we've seen the rising fuel prices and just overall inflation with the economy. I think I saw in calendar year 21 it was 7%. And I'm looking at different projections between 6 and 7% in calendar year 22, if I'm not mistaken. But But overall, there is inflation, and it is happening. So just being cognizant of that in terms of all of our tangible and products and services with the economy will have a domino to our budget.
Mr. Martella, can I
Yes,
ask a
ma'am.
quick question on that? So you said a utility rate increase of 11%. Is that built in there right now or no?
It's hitting right now.
Hitting right
Yes, ma'am.
now.
Yes,
So
ma'am.
we've maintained that level for next year's budget?
Yes, I'm putting that in there.
Okay,
That's the
but no
plan.
additional increase?
No, ma'am, not an additional 11 on top of 11.
Okay.
To answer your question.
Okay.
Yes.
And how about fuel? I saw today, well, I think we all know what fuel's been doing.
Yes.
So that's like a 25-30% increase.
Correct.
Is that reflected in this right now?
I did some overall estimate increases in terms of specifically getting on some of the line items. There needs to be a refine, or it's a fluid process. So I can't really speak directly to that fuel component because again, I'm trying to look off 3 years of trend data, and my last good year was FY19.
Yeah.
So hopefully through the May, we'll have a better analysis on what really were the expenditures for FY21 or 22 that we can in turn for 23.
But much like you're talking about, Ms. McKell, what we'll see, and we're almost guaranteed to see some transportation monies, more transportation monies through this budget. But I mean, is fuel going to eat up all
Right.
the extra money we would see?
Right.
That's kind of like what you're talking about.
And then on the salary schedules, those are just the normal step increments, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Is there anything, or can we show what a normal cost of living adjustment would cost as well? I think that it's really important for us to consider that for our staff going forward on a much more regular basis than what we had been able to do in the past.
Sure.
Thank you.
And what did the 2% cost? Do you recall?
It was-
520, 560. So it'd be 1% would be somewhere 260, 280.
Yes, ma'am.
So 1% is what we would be?
Well, I mean,
Yeah, I mean,
Just
I think
whatever
we
we
should
decided.
consider, I would like to try to consider what a normal cost of living adjustment
Right.
would be for any other industry that teachers are in, or, excuse me, that people would be in, not teachers. They're going to other industries, I'm sure, but I would like to see what that would look like, what the average should be, and then what that dollar value would be for us as well. And I understand that we're really early in the process, but just
Yes,
thinking
ma'am.
forward to,
Okay. Property assessments, just as a note, I've already talked about that. It's based on a 4% increase, but like Mr. Atkins alluded to, we'll know later in the year, that July, August timeframe. End of year balances, the budget is shown as a balanced budget, or to finish for revenue expenditure. Now that's a fluid process. We've got another 5 months remaining. We could go into a deficit situation, but we will know soon enough in terms of, as the year happens, how we may or may end up. So, turning the slide to slide 12. Revenue, this is less the on behalf dollars, or I shouldn't say dollars, on behalf accounting entry. You're looking at a little bit over 31 million in terms of revenue. And then if you go ahead to the next slide, our expenses without the on behalf is a little bit over 32.7 million. And if you go to the next slide, slide 14, the aggregate of that, or the net of that, ends up being, without taking a 4% increase on the revenue, the revenue or the tax adoption, you're looking at nearly 1.7 in terms of a deficit for next year by itself, just for next year for fiscal year 23. If you did take the 4%, you're looking at a little bit less than the 1.4 amount. As I caution, this is early in the process. There'll be meetings with principals and department heads and those things. We'll have a little bit more of an understanding on revenue, hopefully, for the May tentative budget. And so this is just a start in the process it takes 9 months.
And by May, staffing will be done. There's regulations that say we have to have everything in place staffing-wise. As far as allocations for schools, those types of things, early in May.
So in looking at balances for the end of those fiscal years, you can see we went down just a hair into 20, went up in 21. Hopefully we can maintain at least keeping it equal at the end of 22. And then if this were to come to motion for how it looks right now, you're looking at a decrease to a little bit over 5.5 if we did not take the 4%, and a little bit at 5.8 if we did take the 4%. So go ahead and turn the slide to slide 15. Option 1, these are just items for the board to be thinking about in the future. For the motion, if we were going to keep the current tax rate, again, these are estimates. That's what would happen on the contingency piece. And then if we went to option 2, go ahead and turn it to the slide. You're looking at a little bit above 5.8 if we took the 4%. So a lot of moving parts. Like I said, both the revenue and the expenditure will change. But this is the start.
I thought of one final question, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
I think we had talked in the past about an interest payment being due sometime this coming summer. Is that included in this budget?
That is included, the July 1 payment. So we paid, because we had the transition with are you referring to that in terms of?
No, I'm referring to the interest payment on the new school.
That's a great question. This is not including a debt payment at this time regarding if we were had the element of the new school.
Okay, and I think that was about $350 if I remember. Maybe $350, $750, one of the two.
Yeah.
$750 sounds more.
I was going to say, I think $750 is
Okay.
more.
I did it off.
Yep.
Yes.
Understood. Can you just maybe add that to the future considerations as well?
Yes,
Because I think that'll be.
After speaking with the bonding agent, at this point, I think I may be off just a little bit, but I think she told me instead of this summer, now that would be due in January.
Okay.
If we start the project.
Okay. Yep.
That's
Still need to be considered for the
yeah.
budget though, right?
Right.
Just the timing might be
Yeah.
a little different. Okay.
I
it
do
would
have.
still fall within that time frame.
Okay.
I do have some questions about this, and I just enlarged some of the MUNES numbers. So if anybody would like to have a copy of the numbers, I'm just going to set it up here, and you could come see that. If anybody on the board would like a copy, I'd be happy to share. If you don't want it, you don't have to take it. I know some people didn't find it something they wanted at the last meeting, so just an opportunity to share it.
That's good. What we have here.
Okay. So my first question has to do with revenue. So on the first page, motor vehicle. The motor vehicle projected amount is down around $200,000 over last year's actuals, and I just wondered why you estimated that decrease.
I looked off trend analysis, Ms. Springate. It's a fluid budget, and that's based off just trend analysis on past years, what we had received year to date, and those types of things.
There's a little discussion about that too in legislation that they may even be thinking about, which would hurt us financially, removing that on our vehicles. I know they tried it at one, was it 89, 90, somewhere 88, but there's just a little buzz in Frankfurt about that being a possibility, which would really hurt us on our budget.
Yeah, and I had heard some bills filed around that. And so I just, I also know that my bill was up, and with inflation and the cost of vehicles, I would have kind of expected that to be a little higher. And then the other thing is, if you look at our actuals to date, it's actually higher. So I just want to make sure that when we do estimates, that they're kind of based on what the actual numbers that we're getting in are, and that they're good estimates. But I completely understood that some things are fluid, and I appreciate conservative budgeting, absolutely. But I do want to make sure that when we do estimates about revenue and estimates about expenses, that we're not off by, hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars, because then it's just really hard for us to kind of plan and decide what the tax rate should be and what we should be spending money on, that sort of thing. So that's the only reason I bring it up, and I appreciate the information. My next question has to do about the intra-fund transfers, and that's in the red on my sheet. I do recall the Board of Education approving the $270,000 of intra-fund transfers as part of our working budget in September. But what I didn't realize at the time was that included $175,000 of Esser dollars. What would be the breakdown for fiscal year 23 that we're talking about right now? What would be the breakdown of Esser dollars being used there or planned to being used there?
I know we have, in terms of Esser, hold on one second.
It's the indirect costs.
I have a dead battery, so I'll have to get that back to you
Okay.
after the meeting in Springgate.
Okay, thank you.
Off the top of my head, what did we book? I just have to get back with you.
Okay,
Because I know it was gonna be higher versus what we did in FY21, because we're gonna have more expenditures through the year on ESSER 3 to take advantage of the unrestricted cost rate in FY23 than we did in 22, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay, I definitely appreciate having that number. And then the other question I have is for fiscal year 21, it looks like...
Martello, can I ask if Mr. Martello got these questions a week before, like we typically have a week before our meeting to send these questions in, so that Mr. Martello isn't kind of put on the spot and left looking like he's unprepared. Ms. Springate, did you send these questions in?
I've actually sent these questions
in knowing if you've sent them before.
I'm sorry, I've actually sent these questions in multiple times over the past few months, and I did follow up on January the 4th with another email, just trying to get some clarification. I also asked if we could have the budget presentation a week early. We got it tonight, and I understand Mr. Martello's busy, but I can't really formulate questions if I don't have the presentation. But in response to your question, I definitely have asked these questions in writing and in open board meetings. And again, I'm not asking them to try to catch him off guard. I'm trying to ask because I want to understand what our revenue and our expenses are. I want to understand what and how the ESSER funds are impacting that so that I can make good decisions and have good votes. My last question is about fiscal year 21. We had the interfund transfer of $195,248, and I just don't recall the board approving that, and so I just wanted to ask if you could speak to that.
Okay, so we're speaking of FY21 now?
Correct. The actual FY21 that is included in our information so that we can look at the end of the year, and then of course we're looking at 22 that we're in the middle of, and then we're looking at 23.
I guess my suggestion to you, Ms. Springate, an offer, and this is any time, my door's always open with Mr. Atkins, and you can come down and sit with Mr. Atkins and I, and we can go line by line on what you're referring to in terms of the questions that you have.
I appreciate that, and again, I have emailed you these questions, and I would appreciate if you would get them back to me. And the other part of that is, I want to ask the questions in open meeting and follow up here so that we are transparent, so that people do understand these questions. Sometimes I ask questions because constituents have said, can you kind of find out this for me? And so that would be one of the reasons to ask and to follow up, that sort of thing. My next question has to just do with the surplus. So several people have emailed me to inquire about the $491,000 surplus that was created with the recoding of the Esser for fiscal year 21. What is the process of distributing these funds under Section 7?
the surplus goes back in terms of the overall dollars for the district.
And so will those funds go to the individual schools to be used or allocated?
They'll be used as needed, much like with, kind of what we're doing with some of our things with the schools right now, kind of like the heating repair in the gym, those types of things.
Well, I
Just use as
think,
needed.
yeah, in the past, what we've kind of done is we've sat down and had lists from schools and principals of projects that they were interested in or they thought would be, good to have. I don't know if it could go for interventionalists, that sort of thing. I'm not super sure. But I definitely think that's a conversation that would be nice to have. What are your needs at your schools and how can we kind of help support that? I just want to make sure, I guess, that it's just not being, just dumped back into the contingency or the savings. And then the last thing I definitely want to look at in terms of revenue
Is
is
it a
on.
bad thing to have a surplus, though?
It's not, but you also aren't a bank, so you don't want to just storehouse all the funds that could be used to repair a roof or hire a reading interventionalist or hire more staff. So I don't think we're in the banking business, and we definitely don't need a contingency that's, large and overblown when we have unmet needs.
We also shouldn't be using a one-time surplus to try to fund positions, because those positions carry forward.
And again,
so I can understand the maintenance piece of it, but I would never, ever think that we would discuss positions with a one-time surplus. That just doesn't make mathematical sense.
And again, this isn't a one-time surplus. This is the surplus that was left over in our general fund last year.
We're talking about $500,000.
Correct.
That's a one-time surplus. That doesn't happen every single year. So $500,000 one time does not equal $500,000 every year.
You're correct, and I might not be explaining it properly, but we ended the year with an extra amount of money in our budget, and that
I
extra
understand
amount
that.
was, okay, I'm sorry, I
I
just didn't know if I was
understand that.
explaining it.
No,
So-
you're not. But
Yeah, but I'm just saying, if we end the year and we have an extra $500,000,
Right.
it's not that it's a one-time, it's just that's what
no,
we ended
it's
with.
right.
So, yeah, but I understand what you're saying too. So I guess my next thing is to look at the contingency. So if we look at the contingency, we ended with a little more than $4 million for fiscal year '21, and we are projected, I guess, to end this year with 7.245, and then for the year that you're projecting now, fiscal year '23, it's down to 5.545. So my question is, why are we having these fluctuations? Can you just explain that?
Number one, the contingency at the end of, what year did you quote?
The first one is fiscal year '21.
Number one, we didn't end the year with $4 million in contingency.
That's what all of the financial documents I received every month said. I may be looking at that wrong. Is there somewhere else I can look to see that?
Again, to help you in terms of learning this process,
Please.
my door is always open with Mr. Atkins as a board member where you can come down and sit with us for these, detailed questions.
I think everybody's interested to know, what did our contingency end? The documents you handed out all through last year said $4 million was our contingency balance. Is it something else? And if it is, what is that number?
Ms. Springate, the financials are directly off Munis, and those are the financials. So I can't speak to your dissertation
Well,
that you're coming here.
this
with
is
me
the
to
number
buy
that
it.
I'm taking off of Munis. If it's different, could you please get me the correct information? The next number I'm taking directly off your reports is the one for fiscal year '22, and you have it listed as 7.245. The one that you have listed for tonight on the draft budget is 5.545. So my question is, why those fluctuations? I'm just trying to understand if our contingency or savings account is going up and down by millions of dollars each year. What's causing that? Why is that happening? And what is that surplus for?
Again, my door is always open.
Okay, well, I think the public would like to have answers to those questions too, because they're their tax dollars.
Can I butt in for 1 second if Ms. Springate could take a breath? Ms. Springate, I find it really suspicious that all of a sudden you're concerned about the extra money in this contingency fund when our previous superintendent specifically said that he absolutely recommended keeping as much as possible every year for a rainy day fund.
I think you're
All of a
misquoting.
sudden, are you questioning this?
That's a misquote, and honestly, I don't know
I'm
that
sorry?
it's helpful to go back and talk about what the superintendent may or may not have said. I don't think that's a quote. I think you have to have a contingency of a certain percent that's required, and so I don't have a problem with doing that.
So I'm just trying to figure out why all of a sudden now you have questions about that.
It's not all of a sudden. I have been asking questions about the contingency for a while. And again, tonight is our draft budget session, so that would be the time that you would ask questions about the contingency and why the fluctuations. What's causing that? Where's that money coming from? Is it being planned for something? Those are the questions that really need to be asked. My next question is just about the Esser 2 and 3.
Is this a question that you asked of Mr. Martello before this meeting tonight?
I have
Because don't
repeatedly
recall-
asked questions
I know
about
that Mr.
Esser. I think
Martello
everybody's
has been
exhausted
very-
with my Esser
I know that Mr.
questions.
Martello
But I do
has
think it's
been
important to
very-
kind of get through this, so if I could just go on,
Ms.
please.
Richardson, just a second, just a second.
Sending us every email that you have ever sent him. Yeah. I would like to speak. Ms. Springate gets about 75% of these meetings, and actually, in KSBA training, it said that 75% of our meetings should be about student achievement, but she rails every meeting that we have with these nonsensical questions that we continue to answer
finish your
over and over and over.
Finish
So
your question,
if I
please,
could
Ms.
have
Richardson.
1 minute,
Yes, ma'am.
if I could have 1 minute without Ms. Springate interrupting, that would be fabulous.
Please finish your question.
Okay. I would like to see Ms. Springate send these questions to the board as well as Mr. Martello in question form for all of us to see. That way we have a record that she has sent these before and that she's not getting answered or whatever she's saying. Because at every single meeting, she goes and she rails at Mr. Martello. And I know specifically in KSBA training, they said that it is not our mission as board members to sandbag employees, and I feel like that's what's happening at every single meeting. I am specifically asking Ms. Springate, respectfully asking her, if you have these questions, send them in an email and send them to all board members. That way, when you don't get an answer, we all know that you don't get an answer. Because from what I see on this end, and I feel like perhaps maybe other board members see the same thing, because I feel like we're all asking the same question. We don't see answers not being or questions not being answered. We get emails weekly from Mr. Martello who have a list that has a list of Ms. Springate's questions as well as answers. So if there's questions that she's asking that she's not getting answered, why isn't she sending them to all of us? If she's upset about it, if she's upset about asking questions that aren't being answered, why wouldn't we all be? Send them to all of us. Because at this point, I feel like every single meeting, this is just an attack on Mr. Martello when we should be focusing on student achievement. I don't even think our role as a board is to dig this deep into the financial situation of our school. Yes, we can ask questions, but we have people who are hired and educated to do this work. We are elected to trust their decisions, to look into it and trust it. I don't think that we are elected to sit here every single meeting and rail our employees of the district about things that we actually aren't supposed to be asking them about. Is Grant here tonight?
No, ma'am.
Again, if I could just please finish. I would
No,
like to
no,
point
you
out
can't. No,
port
ask the
policy
question.
04.
Miss Richardson.
Miss
Richardson.
Grant is here tonight.
He's
Is
not.
he here?
He's not. Let's let Ms. Springate finish her questions, and then we're going to move on. We have a motion to accept this draft bill.
Thank you so much. I just would like to just point out really quickly before I finish, policy 04.1 is clear that on or before January 31st, the board shall formally and publicly examine a detailed estimate of revenue and proposed expenditures by line item for the following fiscal year. So I'm not trying to do anything that is nefarious or put anyone on the spot. This is our duty. And so I do just have a few more questions. And again, I think they're important.
Baloney. That's
According
baloney.
to the budget,
That's baloney.
if you look on page 2 in the red font, according to the budget prepared for the budget work session, approximately $2.7 million of this year's expenses are being covered by Esser 2 and ARP or Esser 3 funds. The total expenses for the fiscal year are projected to be around $30.7 million. So here's my question. Should the $2.7 million of expenses in Esser funds be added or subtracted to to that 30.7 million total?
The ESSER plan is fluid. There's a plan back to July or August that's changed to November, that's changed to today. There are dollars that we've discussed already in the past. Nurses, buses, school buses. There are some teacher salaries, those types of things that would have been a general fund that are assisting in terms of the general fund expenditure with ESSER dollars. That number is going to be fluid. We've already had some changes this week
It actually changed this week. As we mentioned.
in the ESSER 3 ARP.
I think the question is, does the 30.7 include that money, or does it not include that money?
The 30.7 in terms of the budget presented tonight, are we speaking to
Yes.
No,
FY23?
talking about FY22, but it applies to 23 also, yes. 22 is just the one that we had a solid number for.
Like we said before, 22 is being benefited by the ESSER allotment.
Correct. I understand we're supplanting the general fund by using ESSER, but my question is, how does that affect the bottom line? So the total expenses for fiscal year 21 is 30.7 million. Are we adding that 2.7 million in ESSER, or are we subtracting that 2.7 million in ESSER? And why that's important is, one, if it's added, then that would create a deficit. But if it's subtracted, then we would have a huge surplus. So I'm trying to decide if it's included, like Ms. McHale said, and you might be able to explain it better for me.
It's just, it's really a simple question. Does the 30.7 include the 2.1, or does it not include the 2.1?
The 30.7 includes an amount of ESSER dollars, not specifically up to the tune of 2.7.
So that's fine.
Yes.
So then in your revenue piece, does that include reimbursement of that same dollar value, whatever that dollar value is that included in the revenue?
No, because if we're speaking to FY22, that was just speaking to expenditures by themselves.
Okay.
Not, because it didn't reflect revenue.
Okay, but it would, I would think, not show, I think if it's included in the 30.7, then there's no increase or decrease anywhere else, so that where we end is where we end.
Where we end is where we end with the benefit of ESSER.
Right.
These one-time dollars
Right.
are benefiting the general operating budget.
Yep.
To enable us to do many things across, or with our pay for our 2% increase.
Right.
Just a whole slew of basically maintaining operations in an environment where we had projected budget cuts in recent years.
I would like to point out, though, and clarify, there is no language in ESSER whatsoever about supplanting or prohibiting supplanting.
No, and that's the point of ESSER, is to be able to supplement for
In
those.
emergency situations.
Right.
Well, and again, I don't want to, just get off on a tangent, but ESSER clearly is for learning loss and then to support
it's
the
not.
physical or
It's
the
not.
mental and emotional
Ms.
needs of the
Springate,
students.
it's not.
And it can, if you look at the KDE guidance and read that document, it can be used to supplant, but it really shouldn't. It should be used for these,
The KDE guidance
these.
says that it is a result of anything related to COVID.
Even continuing.
I understand, but there is a difference between supplanting and using it for those things. So I think if you read the document, it really does explain the difference in supplanting. And you can supplant if there's an emergency. If we were going to have to fire teachers, I think they're fine with supplanting. But if we're just using it to pay existing teachers and then not for these other programs, that's kind of where I have a concern.
It specifically states to continue services to students.
And again, I think if you read the entire document, there's some specific language in paragraphs about supplanting versus using it for other things.
Okay,
So-
I think we need to finish this conversation up. We have a motion. I think we all need to be mindful that we have a draft budget. Like Mr. Martello said, we have a draft budget every January, like we were told last year, and I believe the board has always been told. The January budget is truly just a framework of, there's so many things that are going to change, so many things that are unknown. This is certainly not marry us to anything. Our job is, we are statutorily required to approve this draft budget or to discuss a draft budget and move on and be ready to accept the next draft budget in May. So if you
I do have a
finish
few.
your questions,
Thank
please,
you.
we need to move on. We have
Thank you, I
several.
appreciate it. I know it's hard when other people want to discuss, and I don't want to limit anyone else's input. So, my next question just has to do with the total expenses. If you look at the total expenses, the projected increase from fiscal year 21 to 22 is around 400,000. But if you look at the projected increase for 22 to 23, it's significantly higher. It looks like it's around a couple of $1 million. Can you explain that significant increase of more than $2 million?
Where are you at, Ms. Springate?
I'm looking at fiscal year 21 that ended, and then I'm looking at the ending expenses for fiscal year 22.
Well, number
The
one-
difference in those numbers is around 400,000. So that's the difference in the expenses that you're kind of projecting for this year. But then if you look at the expenses you're projecting for fiscal year 23, that is significantly higher. You can, if you want, you can grab one of those sheets back there. It's kind of all side by side.
I'm good. I'm here to present the FY23 budget.
Okay, well, that is the FY23 budget, so it's up $2 million. And so my question is, can you explain that significant increase?
No. I've answered your questions, Ms. Springate, already, and I'm happy to come sit with me and go over
I
it.
think it's important if we're estimating that we're going to have a $2 million increase when last year's increase was only $400,000. That's something we should discuss. That's something we should be aware of. And I'm not really clear on why we don't want to do that. I don't understand. My next question just has to do with, are we planning on using ARPS or funds to cover general fund expenses again for fiscal year 23?
Absolutely.
Okay, and you're going to let us know that amount?
When we come across that, we sure will.
Okay, so we're going to be supplanting, which means we're going to be using
Again,
Esser
there
to
is
cover
no
the general
language in Esser
fund.
funds that say supplanting.
I think that's what
There
we're.
is no language. We've identified that already. You
I think
you
that's
even
what we're.
admitted that yourself.
I think that's what we're doing.
You
I'm
admitted
not.
that
I'm not
yourself.
sure.
There-
So I have a
there is no
couple more
language.
questions.
Please finish up, Ms. Springate. Please finish with the question.
Does the expense
Well,
for fiscal
I
year
think it's
21,
also-
does that
I think it's
total
also
of
important that we-
32.7
I think it's
million
also
include
important-
expenses covered
Ms.
with
Springate,
Esser?
Ms. Springate, can you hold on, please?
No, I'm just going to finish
Hello?
these questions as I've been asked to do,
I
and then I think it'll
that
be your
it's
turn.
also important, before we move on to the next item and we kind of lose sight over what you just went over, I think it's important that, you're comparing actual numbers and projections. We've always been told that we estimate high, and then if we come in under, we're pleasantly surprised. We've been told that by Scott, we've been told that by Amy, by everyone. So, I want to make it clear in your last point that we
And again,
always
these are,
project high.
yeah, these are
Come in
Mr.
low, right. But I just want to make that clear before you, and again, something else, I just want to make it clear that previous CFO and superintendent also said that we always project high. So at this point, you are comparing actual numbers to projections. So it will come out different. There's nothing being shady done or anything here. These are just projections. So
And again, I'm
just make
asking
that
Mr.
clear.
Martello
Go ahead.
about his projections, because the projections have to be based on fact or good numbers. And so that's why I'm giving him the chance to explain, I've increased that $2 million for these reasons. And so I guess that's the question. I mean, that's the process.
Ms. Springate, like I said at the beginning of the presentation, we've had 3 years of an unusual situation with the influx of federal dollars, with kids not even in school for 4 months for in-person instruction, reduced sub-cost here, reduced transportation cost, just a whole slew of things. An increased cost in terms of COVID mitigation, in terms of spraying, in whole different areas, whole different scenarios. So, like Ms. Richardson alluded to, this is a projection. It's a best projection with trend data as best I can do in January for a 9-month process.
And I appreciate that, and I understand conservative budgeting, but my question's very relevant. If we only increased our expenses by $400,000 from last year to this year, Why are we saying we think that's going to increase 2 million next time? And again, I only ask because I don't know. And so I think it's good to have an idea, and the numbers have to kind of be based in reality somewhat too, because we're making decisions about tax rates, about raises, about all sorts of things based on this projected data. I understand that it's going to change a little bit, but I don't think the estimates should be off by hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars. Is fiscal year 23 the expense total of 32.7 million? Is that including expenses covered with Esser dollars?
There are some expenses included that are covering Esser
We are going to
dollars.
use, we're going to fix the budget. We're going to fix the deficit budget. And the guidelines say we can do that. That's what we're going to do.
And so, again, speaking of deficit
Because
budgets,
there's time to pay bills and there's a time to spend money. And I think this district has reached a point where it's time to pay bills.
and I appreciate that, which again goes back to why are we putting $2.7 million into contingency or savings if we're not able to pay our bills? And again, I think we need to look at if we're not paying our bills, what are our expenses, what are our revenues, and what are our future plans? But the budget presented tonight.
I think that's a mischaracterization, and I get very nervous when you say we don't pay or can't pay our bills.
No, I was saying what he said.
No, that's what you
Yeah,
said.
no, I said
You
if that's
said
the
that
case.
we don't pay our bills, and that is absolutely a mischaracterization, and I don't want anybody in the district to walk away from this meeting thinking that we are not paying our bills.
Correct, and I did not say or imply that on purpose, so if that's what
Well,
you heard, I apologize.
it's not what I
was
heard,
saying
it's
what
what you
Mr. Atkins said. And again, I think that the budget presented tonight shows a deficit of $1.7 million. Is that correct?
Yes, Ms. Ringate.
Are you planning to offset the deficit using Esser funds?
It's a fluid process, like I've said, for the last 15,
I
20
understand, but is
minutes.
that the plan, I guess is the question, because you have to submit plans. Plans are out there. Is that the idea or the thinking?
Mr. Atkins has already answered that question.
Was it yes or no?
I said,
He said yes.
what did I say?
Okay, so the plan is to use Esser
I
to
said yes,
cover any
absolutely,
possible
we're gonna fix
deficit.
this budget.
Okay, and my next question, Mr. Atkins, to you, I guess then, is do you think this is an accurate budget? And if you
I think
do,
it's a projection, a best guesstimate, which is what draft budgets are.
okay, if you think it's an accurate budget, how do you reconcile moving forward with a 25-year bond to finance a $60+ million high school using $350,000 of general fund and 80% of our capital outlay for the next 25 years, given our current financial status of a $1.7 million deficit? Could you explain that, please?
Yeah, I can, because it very well may end up being a 30-year bond as we work through things, which will eventually get us to a point that by the time we start paying payments, that our assessments have gone up in the county, which will increase revenue. There may be tax increases that would increase revenue. There may not be, but we can make things work. As you said, and I'm quoting you, we're not here to be a financial institute. We're here to take this money and spend it on kids. We have a $7.3 million contingency. That'll go a long way in helping pay for this.
And again, if we're talking about a 25-year or a 30-year bond using capital outlay, using our general fund, I think those are things we need to sit down and have conversations about. Also, what our maintenance needs might be over the next 25 to 30 years, considering our newest building is almost 20 years old. And again, I think that's an important thing to sit down. Let's see that on paper. If you've got a plan for, well, we'll do this, this, and this. We will have raises here. We will do increases here. We will, be able to make this happen here. I think that's important to sit down and look at, because what has happened is, since we've been restricting this money, we have ended in a deficit budget. It is what it is. It's a fact. Since we have been restricting money for the new high school, we have ended in a deficit budget. And also tonight, I'm hearing a lot of questions and concerns about, since we have been restricting capital outlay, we have, it sounds like, a lot of district needs maintenance-wise. And so those are the things that I think it's really important to discuss. I think it's important to discuss if this is going to cause us to have cuts. I think it's important to discuss what our plans are for raises, for maintenance, what our plans are for, repairing or maintaining, the high school or doing renovations. All of those things, I think,
Well,
what I'm
Ms.
hearing the
Ringate,
public
where were
say
you
is
over the
that they
last,
want to
Ms.
discuss
Ringate, where
those
were you
things.
over the last
So I think
12
it's
years
really
when you've
important
been on
that
the
we-
board.
that we
I
do
believe
that.
it's been that long.
So-
On the maintenance budget, you are directly responsible for the condition that the high school is in right now. Where were you at then? Now we're trying to move forward and do something to get our students and our staff a better high school, and all of a sudden you have a problem with the maintenance budget.
That's
Where
not
were you
accurate,
all
but thank you,
these years before?
Ms. Glass,
When you
for
were on
allowing
the
me to have
board
my
and you
question.
could make it
I appreciate it. Thank you, Ms.
decision
Glass.
to maintain the high school that we have now, and it's in the shape it's in. Where were you at then? You're a little late. Why weren't you concerned about it over, how long have you been on the board? I mean, if you really want to get into this, let's point out the facts. You're the board member that's been here the longest. The school is in the condition that it's in, and the board members now, and the superintendent, and the community are excited and working towards getting a new high school, but all of a sudden, you have a problem with the maintenance budget.
And to be clear,
Where
I
was
have
your voice then?
always spoken about our maintenance needs, and I have always been supportive of the superintendent's plans for doing maintenance. And I am
Well, not as
happy
vocal as
to
you are
say
now.
that I'm absolutely in favor of a new
When it
high
was
school.
falling apart.
We just have to look at the funding mechanisms and be able to
I'm just,
afford the school that our kids deserve.
again, I'm just pointing out, it's nice for you to step in now when we actually have a plan.
Well, that's ridiculous and really untrue.
Okay,
so.
moving on.
I'm sorry you think that.
Moving on. We have a motion to accept the 2022-2023 draft budget. We have a motion by Ms. McHale, chair second. All those in favor? Aye.
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 All those opposed?
Nay.
Motion passes 3-1. Moving to item G, approve awarding the bid for the WCHS Emergency Structural Repairs Bleacher Repair Project to Higher Construction. Mr. Martello, can you speak a bit on, I'm sorry.
Oh, I think we missed one.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry, you're right, thank you. I even had it, okay, I'm sorry. Item F, is there a motion to approve the KDE mandated adult meal price increase?
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion by Ms. Springate and a second by Ms. McHale. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 4-0. Okay, now we're moving to G. I'm sorry. Approve awarding the bids for the WCHS Emergency Structural Repairs Bleacher Repair Project to Higher Construction.
And real quick, the bid opening was Wednesday, I think, and Ross Torrent had to vet the bid winner, or the lowest bid, so that took 2 days. That's why this didn't get on the agenda until Friday afternoon. So and when she contacted us, he actually started working to get it put on there.
And I do believe the bid came in lower than expected, correct, Mr. Martello?
Yes, it was,
Should
Mr.
we,
Hughes.
should we have the motion and then the discussion?
Yes, and Mr. Hughes, can you help me in terms of the exact language that it needs to be?
Sure, absolutely. And we can kind of summarize what occurred. But do you want to?
Yeah, can you go ahead and give a summary in terms of
Sure.
that process where we had the
Absolutely. So
vendors?
we opened bids on Thursday. I will say that this project generated quite a bit of interest. We had 8 bids, which is quite a high number of bids, so that was good. It actually attracted some folks that specialize in structural repair, and actually brought them in from other regions, and even one from another state. So it was interesting that there was a lot of interest, and we got good competitive bids. We had a low bid from Hare Construction out of Louisville of $310,000. That was slightly below our cost estimate that we had included on the BG1. I believe about 7% lower. And that was a low bid. And we certainly reviewed the scope and did, as Mr. Martello was mentioning, a bit of vetting and following up, just because our firm had not worked with this particular construction company before. But in doing that, we found no reason not to recommend this low bidder. So that's what you'll see before you tonight. So to award the bid, we will then work up the contracts, and the basic schedule is to move forward very soon. As soon as contracts get put together such that we can get the steel shop drawings moving as quickly as possible. That's the big lead time item on this project, with the hopes that some work, if not the steel itself, can start on site on the 14th of March, with the substantial completion date being the 6th of June right now, final completion date a month later. So that's the kind of rough schedule looking ahead. What you'll also see, just as I'll jump ahead a bit, but just to kind of, so we did, of course, revise the BG1 with the actual bid price. You'll see that as well. The other thing that you're going to see is approving a special inspector for the project. So special inspections are required on any project that includes any structural elements. It's required that it be a third-party review and actually observe and test the materials, the structural materials. And so that is what you would be doing, is hiring this third-party consultant. We did also do an RFP for these, and Ellie Gregg was the low bid that responded to that RFP that we put out. Yeah, I think that's the summary of all items related to the structural repair.
Thank you, Mr. Hughes. Is there a motion to approve the awarding of the bid for the WCHS Emergency Structural Repairs Bleacher Repair Project to Higher Construction?
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
There's a motion by Ms. Springate and a second by Ms. McHale. All those in favor say aye.
Can I just, I just want to make sure, just one clarification for everybody, is that every bidder on this list, Mr. Hughes, had the same requirements, the same materials, because this one is quite a bit cheaper, and I just want to make sure the public understands that these were all based on the same bid requirements. So it's not like we're doing part of a repair because the bid that we chose is half the cost of the highest bid.
Yeah, the RFP will have the same scope of work, the same language for everyone.
That's correct. They were all bidding the same documents. This one in particular, you see the spread both because it's of the nature of the project and being a kind of messy renovation of this existing structure, as well as the open-endedness of that we put on the contractor to cover any existing utilities or other piping that needed to be moved as a part of the project. That, I believe, is why you saw such a spread. But we did make sure that we reviewed the scope of the project in detail with the low bidder, and they gave all the right answers, that they understood what was involved. So
excellent. Thank you. Just wanted to make sure we were clear.
You're right. I forgot to ask for discussion. Is there any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes 4-0. Moving on to item H, approve revised BG1 for the WCHS Emergency Structural Repairs Bleacher Repair Project that Mr. Hughes just elaborated on. Is there a motion to accept that?
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
There's a motion by Ms. Springate and a second by Ms. McHale. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes 4-0. Moving to option I, is there a motion to approve the agreement with L.E. Gregg to perform the special inspections in the amount of $3,619.00 for the steel inspections on the WCHS Emergency Structural Repairs Bleacher Repair Project, again, that Mr. Hughes just elaborated on as well? Is there a motion?
So moved.
There's a motion by Ms. Springate. Is there a second?
I'll second.
There's a motion by Ms. Springate and a second by Ms. McHale. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries
Aye.
4-0. Is there any old business? Any board member communications?
I do have something on that. I know we've all been receiving a ton of communications lately, but one I received last night had a request, and so I just want to go through it really quickly. It just says, and we all received this, Greetings. Recently, after traveling the district for basketball and realizing how woefully inadequate, filthy, embarrassing, and dangerous our athletic facilities are in comparison to others in the district, I decided to do a little research about where in the process of the new high school build our district has arrived. While it was difficult to find detailed, concrete information concerning the timeline of the new build, I did find a lot of discrepancies between board members, parents, teachers, and forum participants on the funding and potential to meet student needs in the new building. As a parent and taxpayer, I am respectfully requesting the Board of Education of Woodford County Schools to schedule a question and answer session to address the new high school funding concerns, as these should be easy to clarify and unify the community, as well as to raise very low morale over the project. After reviewing the 2021 board meetings, especially recent ones, I am sad to see the questionable issues raised by our students, teachers, parents, and community members go unanswered and sometimes ignored. When may we as taxpayers expect a session to answer questions regarding these concerns and stop, I'm not sure how to pronounce this word. I guess I'll just say hiding. I don't even know how to pronounce it. I apologize. We all got the email. Thank you for your consideration, and that was from a parent. So I'm trying to be more responsive. When folks come up, I didn't realize they were feeling completely ignored. But as I put myself in their shoes, I understand why they feel that way. So I'm trying to be more responsive to the questions and comments and emails in an open way. So I would request that we just go ahead and schedule the question and answer session that's been asked for.
I've got a question myself, and I'm new here, bear in mind. I know there's been one, but how many answer question sessions have we had about this facility?
We've never had a question answer session where folks could come and interact with us. And again, I think part of what people are saying is we would like for you to answer our questions and not ignore them. So I think what she's asking for is I'm sorry, let me finish please, is the ability to come and to sit and to ask these questions like they asked tonight, and then for us to respond back and answer. And so, again, I thought it was a great idea, and I was very thankful when I get emails from folks. So I think it's a great idea, and I would love to schedule it.
I think I actually attended one of those back and forth question answer sessions. I don't disagree that we need to have that. I would request that we wait until Ms. Bradley is back, because she is in charge of that committee. She is out due to a death in her family. I don't think it's unreasonable to give it a few days and have it scheduled then. I know it's on her agenda to schedule another VE committee meeting, and that would fall in line with that. But I think the website has all the documents, all the meeting minutes from all of those value engineering committee meetings all the way back from the beginning. I do believe all of the construction documents are out there, all of the bid information, the evolution of the financing is out there, albeit I will agree that's confusing for a lot of people to understand. But there is information available, and it's all linked on the district website, I believe. Is that correct, Mr.
It's been updated as this process has moved through.
I don't think it's an unreasonable request to have the question answer. I do believe that we should wait for Ms. Bradley.
That sounds fine. Thank you.
Okay. Any discussion items?
Yeah, and I do know that we have in fact had, I believe it might have been 3 question answer forums, but I know that we did have at least one where we had a mediator come in. I think her name was maybe Miss Thomas, but it was actually where people could sit down with board members, ask questions, have them answered. And I think realistically, if we look at the broad scope, we could have a community member who said that they haven't gotten to do this come in every month and ask for another meeting and another meeting and another meeting. And our website actually has tons of detailed information about it. You can always reach out to Mr. Atkins, Mr. Martello, any of the board members. But I'd also like to say that, since this is our kind of closing statement thing, that I do appreciate the detailed statement that Mr. Atkins made at the beginning of the meeting. I think that he made it very clear without holding back at all, that the ESSER funds have been and will continue to be used to benefit our district in areas where we have been directly impacted by the COVID pandemic. I think he was very clear with that. I don't see a problem with the way that any of those funds have been spent. You know, the diesel fuel was a big deal, but in reality, that diesel fuel brought our students meals in the summertime, got them to school and back. I think that, I mean, you can almost relate anything right now to the COVID pandemic when it comes to our students. And I don't see a problem with that if it comes to helping them and getting them to school or getting them meals or the things that they need when we're all kind of, you know, separated and not able to be together. And then I also want to say that, you know, Ms. Birch, the art teacher that came out, I really appreciate what she said. And out of all of the comments from any of us, the public or anything else, the words that she said and feeling that I could hear in her voice when she spoke tonight was so intense. And I feel like that we take these board meetings and we get so heated talking about the new school and money, and we lose focus on what we're actually here to do, and that is to support our students and our staff and really look into what they're going through right now in this pandemic. I know that our suicide rates are up. Depression is huge right now. We're losing focus here, and we're not focusing on directly what we need to be focusing on, which is our student achievement and the needs of our students directly. Not what's going to come tomorrow, not what's going to come next year or 10 years from now, or what happened yesterday or 3 years ago with the tax vote. It's what they are going through today. We have got to refocus and move back to what we're here to do. And I think that that is mainly the most important thing for us to do. KSBA has said that. Student achievement and well-being is our focus. We have got to get back to that.
Thank you, Ms. Richardson. I really couldn't agree more, and I definitely think we need to put our money, especially our ESSER money, where those priorities are. I really couldn't agree more. Thank you.
Mr. Atkins, is there a need to go into executive session tonight?
Oh, wait, we still have the A, B, C, and E of Article 13.
Those are written only, right?
Yes, yeah, so do we
don't vote
we
to
don't even
accept
address
those, right?
Okay, gotcha.
Okay.
I knew we didn't vote, but I didn't know if
Okay.
we addressed them or not.
So no need for executive session? Any other business? Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion by Ms. Springate and a second by Ms. McHale. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries 4-0.
You need your head checked.